Hey, today we're really excited and honored and privileged to have Bob Epstein with us. Bob is one of my inspirations, actually, and was really doing the green thing and the entrepreneur thing way before it was ever cool to do such a thing. So, Bob is here today. Bob's an entrepreneur. He's an engineer with a PhD, actually, from the University of California, Berkeley, and he was the co-founder of 5 companies. So if anyone's out there looking to get inspired about being an entrepreneur and a green entrepreneur at that, he founded Sybase, New Resource Bank, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, Get Active Software, Colorado Microdisplay, and Britton Lee. Besides that, he's a trustee of the NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and he's a co-founder back in 2000 of E2. And of course, we're going to be talking about E2 today. And thank you, Bob, for joining us.
Well,
this is truly, thank you. And thank you for making the time. You are far busier than any human being that I know, but it's because of your passion and love for what you do. And Bob, we're just going to start easy today. Tell us, this is Earth Week, and there's no better human being than to have on the show today, the Green is Good show, than you for Earth Day, for Earth Week, and to provide our listeners with some inspiration. So tell us a little bit, how did you go and from, all those startups to becoming the environmental guru, leader, visionary that you are?
Well, when I was starting my second company, Sybase, I asked myself, why was I doing this? Because it's a lot of work. You miss time from your family. And I said my reward would be, if the company is a success and I have some extra income, then I'll switch my attention to figuring out how to make business pollute less and make more profit by polluting less. And then, that was my reward. So Sybase ended up being a big hit for me, and I switched careers.
That is amazing. And when you say you switched careers, how did that work? I mean, no one was doing the Green Revolution, wasn't even here. You're really one of the co-founders of the Green Revolution. What did that mean back then, cleaning up the earth and making the world a better place? What did it look like back then?
Well, I found that the environmental groups were really good at expressing the environmental harm being done and, the reasons why we want to clean things up, but they weren't really very good, and a lot of times not even credible, explaining whether this meant it was going to cost us jobs, what was the expense of cleaning it up. And so I really felt they needed a business voice that could look at the data and say, the net result is there's more jobs out there if we do it right than if we have a couple years of pollution-based prosperity.
Okay, and then so what did you put your head and heart into? What did you create, or what organization did you become part of that then started working towards where you are today?
Well, there really wasn't any environmental group that was sort of good at law, good at science, good at policy, and good at business. But NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, was really great at 3 of those 4, and so I offered them a deal. I said, look, I want to be, I want to work with your organization, and I want to build a business network that works with it, that helps go out and argue the economic case.
But when was this? What year?
This was in beginning of 2000.
2000. This global warming and Al Gore's proposition, of overheating the earth wasn't even popular, wasn't even, all over the media like it is today. So how much resistance did you find, and how uphill a battle did you have to climb when you were talking about this?
Well, I found it was pretty easy to attract business people. There were a lot of people that liked that concept. What was unknown is, could you actually make a difference? And so the very first thing we worked on, which was started in fall of 2001, was we met Fran Pavley. At that time, she was a freshman assembly member in California, and she had this idea of putting a bill out there that would limit the amount of greenhouse gas coming out of passenger vehicles.
Gotcha.
And, of course, if you could do that in California, then other states could adopt it as well. And so we took on that cause, arguing that if you had cleaner vehicles, they would cost less to own. More choice would be out there, because at the time it was very hard to find a clean 4-wheel drive vehicle. I like those because I'm in the snow a lot in the winter. And we took that on, and we beat the auto companies at their own game.
Gotcha. And so then, but now explain the approach of what you created at the NRDC with E2. I mean, how does that approach different from other environmental organizations? And what's the traction in the proposition that you've built since then in 9 years?
Well, what we do is we get people from the business industry, people that have actually, created jobs, as part of their careers.
Right.
And we get them. They come up to speed on the information, particularly on the economics, and they go in as volunteers and they meet with legislators. We just came this week for Earth Week. We were in Congress. We met with more than 50 different members of Congress.
Wow.
And the people in those meetings are business people. No one pays them to be there. They pay their own way. There's no lobbyists in the room, and they just explain, look, these are the jobs. I'll give you a great example in California. California's been fantastic at cutting, making everybody more efficient with energy. And so if you look at the 34 years that California's been doing energy efficiency standards, it turns out that the average bill in California is lower than the national average. And the money saved compared to the national average was $56 billion was saved by every household. And that $56 billion created 1.5 million jobs because people, when they have more disposable income, that's a bigger job creator than spending money with your energy company.
And we're going to talk about jobs in a little while, but we're going to take a little break here now, and then we're going to come back, talk to you about more about E2 and more about green jobs and the green collar workforce that's being created right now.
If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back, and this week we have Bob Epstein with us, and we're so thrilled. And Bob, we were just, when we were ended the last segment, we were talking about green-collar jobs and stuff, but I want to go back to E2. How many members do you have now nationally, and how many do you have in California? What chapters do you have here in California? If people get inspired by your words of wisdom here, where can people now join in E2 and join the revolution?
Well, we're a virtual organization. A lot of our stuff is done electronically, but we have over 850 members around the United States, actually in 22 different states. In California, we have 550 members, and we have 3 areas where we focus. One is the Greater Bay Area, Southern California, and then we've just started doing things in the Central Valley, particularly focused, starting in Fresno, but trying to cover the whole valley.
That is awesome. And what's your goal here in the Valley? How can people get involved? How can people, join in the E2 revolution here in the Central Valley? What's the best, easiest way?
We have an organizer that's volunteering that's helping out. We could ask them to contact you as well. But what we're really trying to build in the Central Valley is another business voice. In addition to agriculture, that can look at this and say, there's a whole new clean tech thing that's starting in the valley. There's the issues of water, air quality, and goods movements, and there's a way to address all of this and create more economic growth for the valley.
And Bob, we'll also post the E2 website up on the Green is Good page and the Clear Channel Network, so that way if people want to just go to e2.org and see what you're doing and send an email or call in from here in the Central Valley, they can do that, and you can then direct them.
Yeah, we'll make sure the front page has contact information specific to the Central Valley. I was born in Stockton. I care a lot about what happens there. Hey,
listen, Bob, I've been with you on numerous occasions, and your track record has proven out many times. You not only talk the talk, but man, you walk the walk, and that's why it's such an honor to have you here today. Hey, let me ask you also, let's go back to your travels this week and our new president and the political will in Washington, D.C., and how that translates not only here in California, but across the nation and here in the Central Valley, obviously, too, to the new green collar, basically the green collar workforce. Is it going to happen, and how is it going to happen? Is Washington going to help us with this, and what does it look like?
Well, I'll tell you, it's so different than last year or the last 8 years even in Washington, D.C. Of course, one important aspect is if you look at the stimulus money, there's money specifically targeted toward green jobs and toward energy efficiency. And something I love, the Department of Energy has dollars, available to be distributed through states for energy efficiency projects, weatherizing homes, doing things so their bills are permanently lowered. And they're telling every state, we want to do this with you, but you, the governor, has to commit to working with your utilities, so they will aggressively sponsor energy efficiency and some states have problems doing that, but so far they've been able to get 13 state governors to commit to this program. So it is just totally different world than a year ago.
That is great. And then how is it going to be, though? How can we look to, and who do we look to for the green collar, workforce? How do we help create that? And what's your take here in California, Central Valley, and in California to get part of that green collar revolution?
Well, the state has organized, programs to help develop this. A lot of them are done for training programs in the community colleges to get skilled labor up to speed. So that, the green collar jobs are in a lot of different areas. They're clearly in energy efficiency. They're in, renewable energy and things of those sorts. But I just have to tell you, the most exciting thing happened yesterday evening.
Let's hear it.
And, for the last 4 years, the state has been developing something called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. And the idea is to take a gallon of fuel that goes into your vehicle and say, right now it has a certain amount of carbon in it. And by 2020, people that are selling fuels are required to reduce that total volume by 10%, total amount of carbon, by any technique they want. They can use some amount of electric vehicles. They can move to biofuels. There's no specific thing they have to do except reduce the carbon. And so at the meeting last night at the Air Board, they adopted this ruling by a vote of 9-1. I've been working on it for years.
Wow! Congratulations!
States, thank you very much. 16 states have said they're going to follow suit. And the same language is written into the climate bill that's being debated in the House subcommittee this week, in fact. And so it's a huge change. And we had the support of some of the major oil companies too. And that's the part that's so exciting because they all recognize that the amount of petroleum out there in the ground there's both the pollution problem associated with it, but we're running out.
Right.
And so this creates opportunities. There's biofuel companies. People we had testifying there is a company that takes municipal solid waste and converts it to fuel instead of putting it in landfills. And another company there that has the capability to scale up to 100 million gallons of biodiesel made from waste grease. So,
hey, congratulations. I know you've been working hard on that, and that's just great for all of us. All of our listeners are going to benefit from that hard work that you've done and that victory last night.
Well, and getting back to sort of the connection between the economy and the environment.
Right.
So then the first objective in doing this is to reduce greenhouse gas pollution.
Right. And
just help keep the planet from overheating. But the second thing is the economic benefit. So it's not only the jobs from these new industries, because, when you buy a gallon of gas, most of that money goes overseas.
Right.
It certainly doesn't go locally.
That's right.
It certainly doesn't stay in the community. When you buy a gallon of, low-carbon renewable fuel, it's very likely made from materials that were made right here in California, so the money stays locally. But then we had the question, well, what is this going to mean to fuel prices? And my question is, right now, your fuel price is totally dependent on the price of a barrel of oil.
That's right.
And so right now there's one variable, and last year it was pretty painful.
and
there's no competition. But if you look at these things, one of the companies that's selling biodiesel prices at prices below the pump for diesel.
Hey, when you listen to T. Boone Pickens, and who has called the energy industry better than anybody else, he says we're going back to $150 a barrel eventually. So I think your proposition is right on the money.
Yeah. So that's just one example. There's the local jobs of making them. There's the fact that the money gets recycled locally instead of being sent overseas, and you have a cleaner planet.
It's amazing, too, what you were talking about, Bob, earlier, talking about mandating the reduction of carbon in the fuel. That's also going to create a lot of opportunities for people that are going to sit back and think, we know we have to do it. The question is how. When you get the big how question, that's when people really start turning the wheels in their minds, and that's where the entrepreneurial spirit really flourishes.
Oh, you're so right, because now if you can figure that out, there is a market for you.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that a little bit. When people turn on their televisions, Bob, and they see the doom and gloom and the economic earthquake that's happened the last 18 months in the banking and finance world, I want to talk about one of your other ventures and how that ties into E2 and to our listeners who want to get into the green revolution and be part of the sustainability movement. Let's talk a little bit about your New Resource Bank and what it's doing to help fund entrepreneurs and the visions and dreams they have to make this world a better place.
Well, we started New Resource Bank. It's chartered by the state of California, FDIC insured. It's a community bank, but what's different about the bank is we work with clean tech companies, with organic farmers, and with people that just believe in all of this to try to be their bank of choice.
And so, how's it been going? Like, when did you start it, and how's it been going?
We opened our doors in September of 2006, so we'll be 3 years this year. We've had very strong growth in terms of deposits and interest in the bank. We've attracted depositors from throughout the United States. With pretty straightforward. Free ATMs with a minimum balance, friendly service. We know your names, and the money that you deposit in our bank, we then target as loans into green businesses.
Hey, and so for entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this show, how do they access money now? What's the best way? You've done this so many times, 5 businesses and other things that you founded. You're a rock star, and not only in the business world, but you're a rock star in the environmental world. How do we marry those up and inspire other entrepreneurs to join in who watch the doom and gloom or read the doom and gloom every day, and they feel like there's no access to capital?
Well, it takes a lot of fortitude to be an entrepreneur, and you have to love hearing the word no. You have to be inspired by it, as you know yourself, John.
Hey,
businesses you've created.
Hey, but I want the listeners to know, though, New Resource Bank, I love your mission, by the people and for the people. And this show is for the people. This show is for changing your life and changing your mind. And so I want people to know we're going to put up the resource to the New Resource Bank online on our website, but newresourcebank.com. It's spelled just the way it is, and I want our listeners to know that you've created another wonderful opportunity for people to become part of the revolution, to democratize the process of becoming part of the sustainability movement instead of pushing people away. So, Bob, you're just amazing. So
I appreciate it. I just want to make one clarification.
Sure.
Nobody's misunderstanding me.
Yeah.
We certainly help businesses be successful. We do lending.
Sure.
We don't actually invest. We are a state-chartered bank.
Gotcha.
So by definition, we can't do that. But, for example, we worked with SunPower and developed a solar program so people could put solar on their home with no money down. And then we try to match the rate so their savings in electricity is greater than their monthly bill.
Bob, what other, if you were to give your top 5 tips for helping the earth become more green, what would your top 5 tips be?
Well, first of all, you have tremendous influence in the products that you buy and the food that you eat.
Gotcha.
And so you can do that, and I don't think anybody needs to sacrifice their quality of life, but the choices you make can make a very large difference.
And I've seen you driving your Prius, and I know you like I said, you've got the DNA and you walk the walk.
We have a Prius. So I think that's the first thing.
Okay.
The second is to get involved. In my experience in Sacramento, Washington D.C., and the other state houses I've been in, they don't hear from that very many people. They tend to hear from the same business lobbyists and various interest groups that are very comfortable with the status quo. So, we make it really easy for our members to communicate with their congressmen and their members in the state legislature. And what we do is, for our members, we hand deliver the messages.
Gotcha.
So they don't just get it in email. No one reads the mail.
That's right.
We just deliver it in person.
That's awesome.
And Bob, do you
deliver that message?
Do you think that if we're hearing you correctly, that government hearing directly from voters and the constituents, that voice is a bit louder than the lobbyists at times?
It particularly if it's a new voice, and if it's a voice with some passion, and they really it really does matter. And I've met I've met a lot of these people. At this point I've met almost 20% of Congress.
Oh my gosh!
Working my way through it, and so there's certain things you can do as a business person coming in and saying this is the economic opportunity. There's things you can do as an informed citizen. I can guarantee you that the opposition is doing it.
Get involved. What's number 3? What else can we do? What else can our listeners do out there?
Well, I think there are some people that pick a specific issue to get involved with. For example, if we look at this low carbon fuel standard, there was a lot of industry groups that came out opposed to it, but we basically identified just a half a dozen people that worked with the Air Resources Board and said, we're in this. We can make this work. We can build profitable businesses. We can deliver the fuel. So sometimes people choose to, pick an issue and just really get involved. I was actively involved earlier looking at water issues in the state of California, and it's so much cheaper to be efficient with water than to try to identify a new water source.
Hey, Bob, a couple last things. We're down to the last minute or so, and I'm going to leave it at that for getting involved. But businesses, if you were telling your kids today what's going to be the next Google of the tech revolution, what's going to be the biggest thing in green if for young people out there that are listening that want to make a fortune but also help clean up the earth? What couple of industries would you tell them to focus on?
Well, clearly one of the largest is going to be replacing oil with other products.
Gotcha. So energy.
So transportation.
Transportation.
It's certainly a very large one. We've barely tapped the surface on renewable energy for electricity.
Gotcha.
And then energy efficiency itself. 2/3 of all energy is wasted either in the appliance using it or in the delivery system. So inventing much more distributed systems for both saving energy and for distributing it. And those are just 3 examples. I think the entire food systems are going to get transformed in the next couple of years because there's ways of doing it that are just so much smarter than the large centralized agribusiness that a lot of our food comes from today.
Hey, Bob, listen, we're at the end of today's show, and we are so thankful for you spending the time with us. I know how busy you are and how many people are pulling on you. We're going to ask you to come back at another time and give us an update on what's happening out at E2 and at your bank and in the political world. And, hey, just thank you for being our guest today. You're amazing.
There's a whole new world in Washington this year, and we need to help them get some really good climate and energy policies in place.
Thanks again, Bob. Green is good, and you're making it happen. Thank you so much.